Om Shanti. Just sit still and comfortable. Come to the awareness that I am a being of light. This world is a world of matter. And I am a being of light, very unlike gross matter. See yourself. You are pure light. A pure being made of light. I am this being of light, and I belong to that world of light. Just take your awareness to the world where you came from. It's a world of silence, a world of light. That space full of golden red light, resonating with the vibrations of peace and purity, is my home. That space, that sweet silence home, where there is absolute stillness, silence, and peace. No sound, not even the sound of a thought. I, the soul, just move with my awareness to that world, and I see myself in that world of silence, surrounded by the light of peace all around. I am peace. My home is peace. My parent is the ocean of peace. Just dwell in these thoughts for some time. Now gently come back to the awareness of this world. Is my voice audible? Okay. If you have trouble hearing, you can use an earphone. Okay, so that will help you. Fine. So I sent you a picture of the Srishti Chakra, the world drama wheel, and I have been talking about this whole world moving in cycles for a long time, and the picture that you received depicts that. Now, in that picture, you can see that it is mentioned that this is a cycle whose duration is 5,000 years. So, after every 5,000 years, you reach the same point. You complete the whole cycle and you reach the beginning again. And then you again repeat the whole thing. So it goes on like this. Now, in this cycle of 5,000 years, there are four parts. So it is divided into four, or rather, if you see closely, it is five. So just like just like any drama, if you see, classical drama is divided into five parts. So just like classical drama, this whole world drama also, because there is a reason why this is called world drama. Okay, so basically this is a drama and we are actors. That is the idea. And in this world drama where we are all actors, this drama is very similar to classical drama, which also has five parts. And in a classical drama, the first two parts correspond to a time where everything is fine and good and working. And then the villain enters, and then everything goes haywire. So, two parts correspond to the good time, and then after the entry of the villain, everything goes haywire. And then in the end, there is clarity. So, usually in classical drama, there is a character called Deus de Machina, which comes from outside the drama. So he's not part of the drama all along, but then he comes from outside and he gives a perspective or a truth which is not available to the participants of the drama. So this world drama is very similar to that. So you could compare it to classical drama where there are four parts. In two parts, everything is fine. In another two parts, the villain enters. Here, the villain is Maya or Ravan or the vices or evil, whatever you call it. And then two parts, there is a lot of chaos and there is a lot of mayhem. And then in the end, God comes and gives you perspective about everything. Now, when God comes, that is called the confluence age. So, you are in some ways or the other acquainted with the terms golden age, silver age, copper age, and iron age. But between iron age and golden age, there is a small age. If you see, there's a very small cut, and that is the confluence age. So that is called the Sangam Yuga or the confluence age, wherein you move from Kalyugi consciousness to Satyugi consciousness. So the confluence of Kalyug and Satyug, or if you put it in other words, it is like the boat on which you travel from Kalyug to Satyug. So the boat which unifies the two ends of Kalyug and Satyug. So Kalyug and Satyug are like two opposite ends, and you need a boat to travel from here to there, and that boat is provided by God. And you know that in every religion there is a metaphorical boat. Okay, so if you see in Hinduism, there is a mention of a boat in Vishnu avatar. So in Vishnu's Matsya avatar, they say that the Matsya appeared, and then the Matsya said, or Vishnuji as Matsya avatar appeared, and he said that the whole world is going to transform and there is going to be Vinash. So what you need to do is you need to build a boat, and then you need to take everything that you can and just mount on the boat, and I will take that boat across and everything else will drown. So now a similar example is there in Christianity. in the instance of Noah's Ark. So, in various religions, this boat is mentioned in one form or the another. Now, you see, if there is destruction, then anything physical cannot survive. So, this boat cannot be physical, where you just get on the boat and then this physical boat survives and everything else physical collapses. So, this boat is a metaphorical boat where you climb onto the metaphorical boat, which is when Baba comes and he gives you his Shrimad, and you start aligning your thought, word, and action according to his directions, then you create karma, which ensures that you stay immune from the influences of the vinash, and then you are unaffected, and you go to the other side, because antmate sogati. So if you are undisturbed and you are not affected when you leave the body, you go to a place of peace and happiness, which is Satyug. Okay, so this is how it goes. Now, you could also compare this whole drama to the day. So, just like in a day, you have the dawn, you have the morning succeeded by the dawn, and then there is the afternoon, then there is the evening, and then there is the night, and then again there is dawn. So, if you see, the morning of this world drama is Satyug, the day is Treta Yug, the evening is Dwapar Yug or the Copper Age, and the night is Kali Yug or the Iron Age, and then the dawn again is the Sangam Yug. So when Baba comes, again he gives us light, and again he brings us into light from darkness. Okay, so this is how it goes. Now, Baba has told us that it takes only 5,000 years from this for this whole play to come to a place of utter chaos from a place of utter organized state. Like from a place of perfection to this place of absolute imperfection, it takes only 5,000 years to travel from there to here. All right. And it is not like science told us that it is millions of years, or you read in some shastra that it is millions of years. And why do we and how do we come to terms with this knowledge? Because one thing is that you should know that it is true because it comes from God, so it is true because of that. But again, if you apply a little logic also, it fits in. For example, if it takes 100 years for the world population to start from 2 billion and reach 8 billion. So if 6 billion souls are added to the world population in a matter of 100 years, then does it look logical that it takes millions of years for the population to reach 2 billion? So if you look at the mechanics of population, so I have a person in the center, and he has done his masters in population studies, and he is with the census. So he tells me, Didi, that if you go by the population studies, then the population increases by geometric progression. And if you reverse extrapolate it, like you go backwards, then you find that 5,000 years looks like a more or less decent figure to accept if you go by that count. So if you just assume the way Baba said, if you just run this whole equation that 5,000 years the population was approximately 9 lakhs, and then it reaches 8 billion in these many years, so the calculation is almost perfect. Okay, so you can just run this thing in your own head and you can calculate. So basically, this is not derived knowledge. So we are not we are not hypothesizing that let's say it is 5,000 years and then we are trying to run numbers. No, it's not like that. It is revelation. So have you come across this word revelation? So, or in Hindi we say tumri gat mat tum hi jano. So when God comes, He tells you things that are beyond your comprehension or beyond your calculation. And the fact that He tells us it is 5,000 years is not based on any calculation. He just gives the figure He knows is true. But then if we just take that figure and try to apply some logic, that also makes sense. So it's not because it fits in, that's why it's true. It's true because God says it. But yes, whatever God says will fit into logic, practicality, and everything if you apply it. All right. So 5,000 years is the figure that Baba gives us. And he tells us that in these 5,000 years, there are four main yug and then there is this leap yug. So just like you have a leap month, so February has 29 number of days. And then if you look at this word leap, it's a very interesting word because it means extra and it means jump. So this is the age which is extra, like it's 4 and then a little extra in that 4, and then it's also the age when you make the high jump. So you jump from your lowest consciousness to your highest consciousness. So this confluence age is also called the leap age in that sense. And I am really in love with this word leap because I feel this is actually the age to take a leap. So, and also, I like this word leap of faith. So, I have come across this experience in this whole journey that we say that Baba, if you hold me, then I'll take the leap. But then Baba says, if you take the leap, I will hold you. So this is also a very big dilemma in this whole age. That is, we always want to just cling on to everything and move with this idea of security. And then I say, Baba, if I don't have security, then I don't know, I feel fearful. But then Baba says, if you give up this idea of security, you will be secure. So this is also a very interesting thing about this word leap. So this is a leap age. You leap in this age, you have the leap of faith in this age, and then this is also that extra age which just makes you shift from Kalyug to Satyug. Now, when we talk about these four primary ages, that is the Golden Age, Silver Age, Copper Age, and Iron Age, then Baba tells us that this 5,000 years is exactly divided into four parts, which is 1250 years of years is equal to the age of every yug. So every yug is 1250 years in uniformity. So Satyug is 1250 years, Treta Yug is 1250 years, Dwapar Yug is 1250 years, and Kali Yug is 1250 years. And now we are at the end of Kali Yug, and Sangam Yug is supposed to be 100 years long. This confluence age is approximately 100 years long, and it started with the advent of Baba, so in 1936 approximately. Okay, so in 100 years we are supposed to transition from Kalyugi's consciousness to Satyugi consciousness. Okay, so this is how it is working. Now I will also tell you a little about the division of births in these ages, but we will talk about the division of birth in greater detail in another session, which is the CD ka chitra. I'll send you another picture later. But in this session, let's be clear about the duration. So it is 5,000 years and 1250 each divided into 4, which is 1250 into 4, 5000 years of a complete cycle. Now, have you come across the picture of the swastika? So we have all seen the swastika. So, and when you draw the spot in between every that section that the swastika makes, so that dot stands for the soul, and swastika means swasthiti. So basically, when you draw swastika, it means that you are drawing the swasthiti of the soul in every yug. So if you see the first hand of the swastika is like this, straight, right? So this means you are a giver in the first stage. Okay, so the swasthiti of the soul in Satyug, in the first hand, is that of a giver. If you see the picture, you will see this. Then in the second age, which is Treta Yug, the hand is just not up, not upper, not niche. It is just like this. So you're not a giver, not a taker. You're just neutral about everything. Then in the third section, which is the Copper Age, the hand comes like this. So you start becoming a beggar. Okay. And then in the fourth section, the hand is like this. So you start like raising your hand or fighting or, quarreling or just being adamant about it. So these are the swasthiti of the soul in the 4 yug. So whenever you do something auspicious, you first draw the swastika, which means before you start anything, you should remember your swasthiti. Okay, so when you read the Murli, Baba in the Murli will tell you that rotate the Swadarshan Chakra. Okay, now what is the Swadarshan Chakra? That is, you remember your state in all the 4 yugs. In all the 4 yugs, please remember how you were. This is what Baba tells us in every Murli. Now, I will tell you what is the significance of this one direction. So, my friend called me some days back, and she is my childhood friend. So, when she called me, she's not working and she is at home, and then she's looking after children, and then there are a lot of other people who are not doing things she wants them to do, and she's a little perturbed and irritated by them. So when she was telling me all of this, I told her, you were amongst the best students in our class and you were very dynamic. And do you remember that you had a voice of your own and you had an idea of your own? And then she said, you know what? Now that you are telling me, I remember that I was that person, but I don't know when I stopped being that person, and it's been ages I've been that person. So now that you have reminded me, probably I will try to get in touch with that self and try to operate from that self. So, I told you in an earlier session that I, the soul, have a whole memory of the whole journey that I traveled. Now, I had been the most skilled one, the most perfect one, the most sane one, the most wise one, the most accurate one, without ego, without anger in Satyug. And then I have traveled this whole journey and come to this place. Now, when you remember your swasthiti and you remember the Swadarshan Chakra, which is you just go back in time and tell yourself that you are much bigger than your current personality, and you have personality traits which are a little latent and a little dust, covered with dust right now, but they are still there in you. You have abilities, you have virtues, you have powers which you have forgotten right now, but they are there. So when you remember them, they come into action. Okay, so this is called Smriti se Samarthi. So when you remember them, you become capable of them. So Baba tells us, don't be limited by what you think you are today. Just remember your whole journey. And then you know that I have been the most perfect one, and now I may be the most imperfect one, but it doesn't matter because I'm neutral between perfection and imperfection, and I can switch between being the most imperfect to being the most perfect in a second. Okay, and I will tell you one thing. So sometimes people will use your past against you. So when I came into Gyan, so obviously our personalities are not the same when we are before Gyan. So I also used to have a lot of ego and pick fights with other people and do stuff. So then there are people who carry that memory, right? So when I came into Gyan and I changed, so there was a shift in personality. Then there was one person I met from my past, and that person said, "Oh, I don't know, you have this side. So I think this is probably a lie because that is what you are, and that is what that anger or that ego is what you stand for, and not this peace and this calmness." So I said, yeah, maybe you are right, but then it can also be otherwise. That was a lie, and this is the truth. So let's not go into what is lie and what is truth, because these are two sides of the same coin. And just like you can't say whether the night is true or the day is true, because both are true and both keep changing into one another according to time. So this is my time to be a deity, so I'm being that, and it that was my time to be otherwise, so I did that, and I don't regret either of it. So you shouldn't, when you look at yourself holistically, then what you come to arrive at is that everything is there inside you. So you have the darkest of the dark, and you have the brightest of the bright side in you. And then right now, it is completely in your choice who you want to be right now. So you are not limited by your darkness, and you can just jump into your bright side whenever you want. So this is the reason why Baba gives us an idea about who we were, and then how we changed and shifted, and now we are this, and then it is time to go back to being who we were. Now, when you want to go back to being who you were, you need to think about who you were and what were your qualities in Satyug. All right. So, Satyug is described in 5 words. So, you should write that down, which is Sarva Gun Sampanna. Sarva Gun Sampanna, which means full in all virtues. Okay. Then Sola Kala Sampurn, which is full in all abilities or arts or skills. So no, you are not only just virtuous, but you are a great dancer, you are a great singer, you can do everything perfectly. You can use your body perfectly, you can use your mind perfectly, you can use your hands perfectly. So that perfection in action is Sola Kala Sampurn. And then there is Sampurn Nirvikari, which is you are completely viceless. So there is no vice, there is no trace of lust, anger, ego, attachment, and greed. No trace of it at all. Okay. And then there is Maryada Purushottam. So Maryada Purushottam means you have self-imposed discipline, or you are disciplined by design. So, there are two words, niyam and maryada. So, niyam means externally imposed discipline. And when there is no self imposed discipline, then there is externally imposed discipline. Okay, so other people need to tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do when you are not capable of deciding on your own what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So, when I was a child, I used to find it very interesting that the whole concept of traffic police actually was very interesting to me. So I used to tell my father that why are they paying these traffic police people? So he said, because you need to have order on the road. So I said, if these people don't follow order, they will kill each other and they will kill themselves, right? So he said, yes. So I said, that should that not be a deterrent to just follow order? Like everybody should follow order because you will be killed otherwise. So my father used to say, but people don't have that kind of sanity. So I said, so people are not afraid of dying? So he said, no, no, people, I don't know how to explain it to you. Probably people are afraid of dying, but they are not capable of choosing, or I don't know. So he used to get really irritated with me and he stopped taking me on the road because every time I saw a traffic policeman, I had this question that why does the government have to pay these traffic police in order that people don't kill themselves or get into accidents with other people? So this is what, when we do not understand what is good for us and what is bad for us, and we make choices which are self destructive, only then you need an external system of law and order enforcement. Even in families, you see, why do you need everybody to keep telling you this is not okay and you should wake up in time and you should eat healthy and you should drink so much of water or you should go to a spiritual lesson? Why can't we make those choices on our own? Right, so this is Maryada Purushottam. When, so there is a saying that common sense is the most uncommon, and I think that is the truth behind Maryada Purushottam. So in Satyug you have common sense, and right now that common sense is very absent. So that is about Maryada Purushottam, and that is why in Satyug you don't need the court, don't need the traffic people, you don't need the bank, you don't need the police, you don't need any external law enforcing agency, you don't even need hospitals, because if you take care you don't have to worry. So basically, we are not taking care of our bodies, our minds, and that is the reason why we are getting unhealthy. So this is what Maryada Purushottam means. And then when we talk about the fifth quality, it is Ahimsa Parmo Dharma. So Satyug is characterized by this state of complete and absolute non-violence. So there is absolute non-violence. So you do not commit violence in the sense of like causing hurt to somebody. But another kind of violence is using somebody as an object. So, if you see somebody as an object to entertain you or to fulfill your passion or desire or something, that is also violence, because when you objectify somebody, then that person feels a sense of low esteem. So, if you see, um, let me give you a very simple example. Once I was talking to my the woman who cleans the house, and nowadays, of course, in Corona, you don't have anybody. But then earlier, I used to have somebody, and I once just got chatting with her, and I asked her, so, what do you think is your problem? So, do you have enough money? So she said, yes, I think I have enough money. So I said, okay, then why don't you feel great about your life? Because she used to keep complaining to me. So then she said, because people look down upon us. And I told her that, okay, so if you had the same amount of money and you had the same house and you had the same facilities, but you were treated with respect and a sense of fellow feeling, would you love that life? So she said, yes, I would love that life. And basically, I am not troubled by the fact that I have less money, because I have less money and I have less needs also. But the fact that I am not treated well is what actually hurts me. And if you look at the whole system, then when you see somebody in a body conscious way, when you see them with lust, when you see them with ego, you tend to hurt them. And they feel belittled by our drishti. So that is a very big form of violence that we do to other people. So, have you seen that if somebody in your something in your home goes missing, then generally you tend to look at one person and think that this one person might be responsible. And if you conduct an inquiry, usually that person is never the person who is responsible for that missing thing. And do you understand how much of pain or hurt you have caused to that person in just having that attitude and that drishti, that you are not deserving of respect, or I it is okay for me to think that you are the wrong one, or you are the improper one, or you are a body and you are an object of desire. So these are the kinds of attitudes that are very destructive and hurt other people. So, when we talk about ahimsa paramo dharma, we don't perform any kind of violence, whether it is through our attitude, whether it is through our drishti, whether it is in thought or it is in action. So, it's not just a question of beating somebody or not beating somebody, or abusing somebody verbally or not abusing somebody verbally, but there are lots of ways in which we abuse people. Do you know there is a lot of discussion on non-verbal abuse these days? So there is physical abuse, there is financial abuse, there is sexual abuse, and there is verbal abuse, but there is also a lot of non-verbal abuse when somebody is just treating you like you are not somebody who deserves respect. So that is a big form of non-verbal abuse. And when we talk about Satyug, there is no form of abuse, because there is only perfect respect and love and trust and faith in each other. And that is, I think, the need of the hour. So if you look at the culture in the corporate sector these days, what they are trying to do is they are trying to create a culture of equanimity by making it a norm that everybody calls the boss by their name. But then, does it solve the problem? Because even if you call the boss by the name, the boss still looks down upon you. So when he looks down upon you, then even if you call him by the name, it doesn't help, because it's not about calling somebody by the name or saying sir or saying madam. It's about the attitude you hold for each other. And if somebody doesn't hold you in respect and doesn't have a drishti of love and acceptance for you, that pinches you. Another thing which I mostly and think about a lot is making somebody feel not belonging to your fraternity. So, you might have a person in office who works in the office, dines in the office, takes his salary from the office, but then there is a group who makes them feel you sit amongst us, but you're not one amongst us. So you're not included. So you are not one of us. And in families also this happens, in fraternities, communities, workplaces, everywhere this is there. And this lack of sense of belonging. So when we talk about Satyug, Satyug has all the missing elements, which is you feel a sense of respect, acceptance, belonging, care, everything for every soul who is sitting in front of you or who is around. Irrespective of what they do, what they have, which body they are in, what their age is, the respect and the love and the sense of belonging stay uncompromised. So now, why am I telling you all this stuff? It is not because I want you to understand Satyug. It's because I want you to create Satyug. Okay, and what is Satyug? Satyug is nothing but Satyugi consciousness, Satyugi attitude, Satyugi drishti, and Satyugi behavior. And if you see, everything is created in the mind. So first you create an idea of something in your mind, and then it comes into action. So today I'm trying to just, build a conduit wherein I transfer the contents of what Satyug is like into your mind, and then your minds get ticked off and it starts thinking about how you would be in Satyug, and correspondingly how you can change your attitude and your consciousness and your behavior here, so that you can create a new culture. So I told you about these three words. There is sanskar, there is sanskriti, and there is sansar. So once you get an idea into your mind and bring it into your action, you create a sanskar. And then you create a culture, which is Sanskriti. And when there is a culture, then the world changes. When the culture changes, the world changes, which is you create a new sansar. So this is the process by which we will transition from Kalyug to Satyug. This is why it is always said, Brahma ne sankalp se srishti rachi. So it is a new sankalp or a new consciousness or a new thought that leads to a change in the world. Okay, so I want you to think about what is Sarvagun Sampan in action, what is Solakala Sampoon in action, what is Sampoon Nirvikari in action, what is Maryada Purushottam in action, and what is Ahimsa Parmo Dharma in action. So if you just reflect on these things, you will come up with attitudes which will help you shift your perspective and behavior in this world right now. Okay, I will tell you one simple example. So there was, you know that the international headquarters of Brahma Kumaris is in Mount Abu. So Mount Abu, Rajasthan is the international headquarters of Brahma Kumaris, and you are all Brahma Kumars and Brahma Kumaris now. So you should know where your home is. So that is Mount Abu, and I will send you an invitation to come to Mount Abu. So I will plan a trip as soon as the situation gets a little in control, and we will all meet probably after Zoom. We will meet in Mount Abu directly. Okay, so in Mount Abu, so I have been to Mount Abu since many years. I've been going there. Now what happens is, when you enter the gates of Madhuban, so that the campus in Mount Abu is called Madhuban. So when you enter the gates of Madhuban, then you stop, you leave the body conscious world inside, and when you enter, it is a soul conscious world. So it's like entering a different world, if I can put it that way. Now what happens is, inside the campus, there is no terms like Mali, Dhobi, cleaner, cook, teacher. No. Everybody's brother and sister. So ever since we went to Madhuban, we only knew this brother and this sister, and we don't know what they do and whether they should be differentiated on the basis of what they do. So this had been my experience ever since I went to Madhuban, and because it is so naturally there, you don't even take cognizance of it. So you don't recognize this difference until somebody points it out to you. So I had been going to Mount Abu for many years, and then once one lady came to the center, and then she told me, So Mount Abu is a nice place, and I visited that place. And she said that there, everybody is Gyani. So the Mali is Gyani, and the Dhobi is Gyani, and the cook is also Gyani, and teachers are also Gyani, and the gateman was also very Gyani. So, for a second, I couldn't relate to what she was saying because I never thought of them as Mali and Dhobi and cook and gatekeeper. So then I could grasp what she's saying. It took me a minute to grasp that, and then I came to terms that actually people have a way of identifying other people by what they do, not by who they are. So, this sense that we are all souls and we are brothers and sisters takes a backseat when you are body conscious, and sometimes when you don't play along, you take that body consciousness inside you, and then you start applying that body conscious thought inside the campus also. And then I just tried to share with that sister that actually there is no Mali and Dhobi and cook, and we are only brothers and sisters, and the one you see on a cooking duty today might be the one giving you a class tomorrow. So it's not like these duties are fixed or they are very interchangeable, because we are sevadharis. And when you are on seva, you are just a sevadhari, and it doesn't matter what seva you do. And I will tell you another example which is very similar to this. So I once went to invite somebody who is a big shot in this world for a conference. And then when I went there and I extended the invitation to that person to come to Mount Abu, then that person said, why it would be a good idea if you introduced yourself to me. So I introduced the organization, and I said that I also work for this Brahma Kumaris, and I am a Sevadhari. And they said, so what do you do in the organization, or what is your post precisely? They asked me. Know how to answer that. So I said, now for that, you will have to tell me what time of the day do you want to know who I am. Because if you ask me at 4 o'clock, I am a yogi. And if you ask me at 7 o'clock, I'm a teacher. And if you ask me at 10 o'clock, I am a cook cooking in the kitchen. And then if you ask me at 1, I'm the one doing the clothes. And then in the evening, probably I'm again a meditator and a teacher. So you will have to tell me what time of the day you want to know who I am, because I am different people at different times of the day. But as I told you, I'm always a sevadhari, and that's a constant. And when I am on seva, there is one thing, that I am a soul and I belong to God and I am on seva. These are the three things which are always constant, and other things keep changing. So that person laughed like anything, and they said, I think I get what you're trying to say. So he said my question was misplaced. So I said, no, you are accurate in asking whatever you wanted to ask, but I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that. And that person then came to Mount Abu to attend the conference. So this is what I mean when I say it is Satyug, and then we know who we are, and it doesn't depend on what we do or what we have. And accordingly, see, I told you there is a law, we perceive as we are. So if you identify with your body and what you do and what you have, then you will definitely look at other people with that drishti. And you cannot identify with what you do and what you have, and not look at other people and be judgmental about what they do and what they have. So you have to rise above your own consciousness so that you can look at other people differently. So if you start seeing yourself as a soul who belongs to Baba, and everything you do is just seva. So sometimes you are doing seva towards your own body. Sometimes you are doing seva for the people who are connected by blood to you. Other times you are doing seva for humanity. And when you are earning or going to office, you are doing seva in whatever it entails as seva. And this is how, when you have this attitude that I am a soul, I belong to Baba, and that is the end of the story, and everything else is just seva and it doesn't define who I am, then you can look at other people also with that kind of acceptance and non-judgmental attitude, and extend them the love and respect that every soul on the planet deserves, because everybody is a soul and a child of God, and I and you are nobody to disrespect a child of God. Okay, so this is a little about Satyugi consciousness. We will talk about Satyugi consciousness and also what happened Dwapar Yuga onwards and how these religions started getting created, but tomorrow. All right, Om Shanti. So let me take up the questions that are there. Didi, I have fixed my son Ankit's marriage with Jyoti Sharma of Udaipur day before yesterday. Please bless them. Yes, you have the blessings of the whole family, and not just me, but the whole family blesses you. So, congratulations. Okay. So, sister, is it true that God sent Adam and Eve to create the world? No. So, Adam is Brahma Baba, and Eve could be you also, but Eve is Mama. Okay, so we are the people who create the world, not somebody who pops up from somewhere else. Will population become 8 lakh in Satyuga again? 9 lakhs. So that is the beginning population. So we are all trying to be one of those 9 lakhs who come in the early batch, okay, by becoming ourselves again. So will everyone have the consciousness of this by 2036? Not everyone, only 33 crores we need. So that is the critical point which we need for this whole transformation to shift. Okay, so if we have the required number, then there'll be the shift. Does the journey from uh, does the journey from Kalyug to Satyug occur before to Kalyug to Satyug? Yes, it is a repeating cycle. So we have done this journey several times. Okay. Okay, shift in attitude happened. Okay, thank you. Sister, is there any chance to meet you? Yes, you have a chance to meet me. You can come to the center and meet me. Okay, so I'm here all day. And how will that shift happen? That shift happens. There are 4 stages. You shift your consciousness, then you shift your attitude, then you shift your perspective, then you shift your action, that shifts your habit, and then you create a new culture and the world shifts. So these are the steps of the shift. We will talk about that also. Uh, you are in Ahmedabad, so you have to visit Delhi for that, or we could meet in Mount Abu, as I said. Okay, so we will plan for Mount Abu. Will it be 8 lakhs or 33 crores? Yes. So we will talk about the population in detail, but in the beginning of Satyug, it is 9 lakhs approximately, and in the end of Treta Yuga, because Satyug and Treta Yuga are both considered Swarg. So that whole span, 2500 years ke baad, it is 33 crores. Okay, so that from 9 lakh to 33 crores, everything is Swarg. Okay, let's meditate now. So I see that there are lesser questions, so I'm happy about it, because Baba says that you slowly move from Prashnachit to Prasannachit, which is from questions to being satisfied and happy. This is the stage of growth. So I can see you're growing by this. So Om Shanti, let's meditate. I remind myself that I am a soul, and not any ordinary soul. I'm the purest of pure, the deity soul. Look at yourself. You are the star, the purest of pure kind. sitting behind the eyes. Your purity lightens up your mind. You are a pure star, and your mind is very light. The purity in me lights up my face. My face has this divine reflection, this divine radiance. Every organ of my body is very calm and pure. There is a calmness, a purity, an ease, a lightness in every part of my body. I feel I'm so light, as if I'm sitting on the lotus throne, the way deities are shown. My purity creates an auric field around me. I feel there is an aura of light all around me. And this aura protects me from all external influences. I live in this world, but my purity, my aura of purity is such that nothing of the external world influences me. I live in this world like a lotus, which lives in muddy water but stays above it, never gets affected by it. Just sit in this consciousness of living your life like a lotus.